Well, are we doing it? Are we doubling our gardening yield this year? Let's go see. So a couple weeks ago, I shared a video on how we built this garden here. This is my kids' garden. It's a little extra garden. If you want to see how we built that, go check out the video. My kids planted some things. They got to choose what they were gonna plant. And this garden here belongs to my 12-year-old. A few things haven't come up, or they're really sparse. So he said the chives didn't come up. It looks like they came up just fine, but it looks like we're also growing a lot of weeds. We have some beets, some beans, a big cabbage plant, and he's got some more beans over there, and it looks like we're growing some lamb's quarters, which are a weed. You can eat these. You can eat them like lettuce. But other than that, and oh, he has some beets at the back. So they survived the rain, and they're doing quite all right. My little guy, he planted these potatoes. He's 2, and I just topped them up with a bunch of soil yesterday. They need to be topped up in a few days again. When you're growing potatoes in bags, you start out with a little bit of soil, throw some potatoes in, and then keep adding a little bit more on top. It looks like there's some water damage on some of the leaves here. We've had rain for almost 2 weeks straight. And these are pepper plants that we put in buckets. I don't know what's going on here. This middle garden box here had the trellis blown over. Gonna have to fix that, but got some really healthy looking peas and beans. Along the back he's got some sunflowers and some small little cucumbers. They're really small still, these here. The next set of leaves is on the one over on the far side. It looks like some of them didn't come up. This here is my 7-year-old's garden. Again, she's growing some lamb quarters too. She also has a nice looking carrot patch, some beans in the middle it looks like, and some peas. I think she's growing lettuce, and right in the front she has some calendula. So far that's looking all really good, and the kids have been taking care of it. On the deck we've got some spinach growing here, and again the pak choi has gone to seed. We have some radishes here that look like they're probably soon ready to be picked. And then some of the winter gardening Swiss chard and kale I just popped up here in the box. And I still have a few things left in the winter garden buckets. I haven't transplanted those out yet. I will when I get to it. These are just some chives, some chamomile. I think those are lavender actually. I think those there are lavender. And these are supposed to be geraniums. And now I'm gonna take you to the big garden. So now we're in the big garden. A couple weeks ago I showed you how we planted this permaculture area. Everything is doing fantastic, so are the weeds. Finally got around to planting the watermelons out here like I said I would. And they still look pathetic. They still look pathetic and small. It's really hard to grow watermelon in zone 3. I probably will need to, put some little domes over that or some plastic or something, because they're still so small. I don't know if they'll grow, but the blackberries back there are doing fantastic. And this little permaculture guild, this one looks so much better than it did a couple weeks ago. Well, the garden sorrel has recovered. The soapwort is doing really well it's over here. And then we've got the oregano and the mint. The oregano is the yellow back there, and then we've got mint here and mint here. It's doing really, really well. And behind that we have the comfrey. It's doing okay. The hascaps are doing really, really well. Believe it or not, we're growing some grapes. There's some grapes here amongst all this clover. I'm just gonna leave the clover there. in our second permaculture guild. Now, the trees look like they're trying to grow leaves, but all of the leaves are coming from the bottom. Got some horseradish over here. The chamomile has gone to flower. The marshmallow here is doing pretty well. And I transplanted a lupin from elsewhere, and it's doing really well here. It's flowered nicely, and the comfrey is doing well. This here is my 5-year-old's little garden. She's got sunflowers growing up the back, and then she's got some cucumbers. And I'm not sure what she planted in the middle, but she's got some peas on the front here, a nasturtium in the middle, and then some more peas over there. I'm gonna give you a quick rundown as best I can with what's growing where. I didn't plant it all. Some of it was planted by my oldest daughter, and she wrote it on the plan, and I didn't check the plan before coming. So I'm just gonna give you a quick rundown what we're all planting here and what's come up. Finally, it's been a long time since we planted it. So this row here is a 50-foot row, and about every 18 inches is a new pumpkin or squash plant. Now we have a few different varieties. I have some tags down there. There's this volunteer sunflower from last year. But most of this here is all pumpkins and squash. The next row, we've got a row of peas. And then we've got, this is a brassica bed that's been taken over by Purslane. I think that's how you say it. Some big radishes. I think these are supposed to be the black radishes. I think they're supposed to grow big like beets. I could be wrong. This 50-foot row is Swiss chard, celery, and I think spinach. So this here is a disaster, an absolute disaster. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a Purslane farm. These here are Purslane, and I don't remember them being this thick last year. It's probably because we tilled them. But there's lots of them. You can eat them, luckily. They're really nutritious. They're high in omega-3s, so there's that. They're supposedly more healthy than vegetables. But the rest of the row here, we've got Kohlrabi and Cauliflower, another brassica bed. There's a few leeks in here and a few leeks down there, and then at the back we've got onion seeds. And again, there's lots of purslane here. We'll be picking lots of weeds. So these are onions. This row is a 35-foot row of carrots. Now there are carrots, there's several rows of carrots. There's some right here, some right there, some right there, and there's lots of purslane again. So we'll be picking this for a while. And here's another row of carrots. Now, when I mean row, I mean there should be 5 rows. There's right here, 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 and then there's a row on the side. I believe these were planted by the kids. So they need to be thinned. Here we have a row of bush tomatoes. They are Principe Borghese. I don't know if I butchered that or not. Sounds cool though. These are bush tomatoes. They're purposely grown to make sun-dried tomatoes. I thought they were Roma tomatoes, so that's why I planted so many. You can use them for paste and ketchup and all of those things, so it's not a bad thing. I had planned on planting, these are determinate, that means they're bush-sized tomatoes. They do not get super tall, so some of them I have the tomato cages for, and then I ran out, so I didn't put tomato cages in all of them. I had planned on planting different types of tomatoes, never got to it, and so we just have 2 huge rows, one going this way and one going this way. All our rows are 35 feet long of tomatoes of the Principe Borghese. So now we have 2 rows of bush beans in this one row and 2 rows of bush beans in this one row. So last year we saved some beans. These were all from new beans. I believe the beans that we seed saved are in a different row over here. But you can seed save, and you can, from beans, you just let instead of picking them last time, you let them go and get really big and hard and dry, and then you pick them and then you package them away. We just let them dry. We pick them and then just let them dry on a counter in the workshop, and then eventually I pick them out. This here is our row of zucchinis. So about half this row is green Romanesco zucchini, and the other half are golden zucchinis. The ones that are larger are ones that we planted indoors, and these smaller ones here at the end of the row we planted direct from seed at the end of May or beginning of June. The next row here, I guess it wanted to be in the video for sure, is my row of cabbages. Now, we just covered these this morning. I need to find some stones or something heavier on the side. We ran out of hoops. We have our cabbages under here. We just took hula hoops and cut them in half and then covered them with this frost cloth. And that's supposed to keep off any of the bad bugs that are gonna get them and eat them, theoretically. Nothing grew along the fence here last year. We've got these trees all here, these bigger trees and smaller trees. I can't think of the name of them, but they're, we have a lot of them. They turn a beautiful red color in the fall. They're a nice little windbreak, but it does make it harder to grow anything closer to the fence. So we're just trying it. We've got some more pumpkins and squash growing along the fence here. These were all started from seed at the beginning of June. So we're into the 3rd week of June. They're just starting to develop their real leaves. These are still their first set of leaves that don't really count. They don't count. The next row, we tried those rolls of, I don't know if you saw the earlier video where I had the dollar store rolls of lettuce. It's taken a long time to get anything, but it looks like it's actually growing some lettuce. My kids planted some sweet corn, and it's starting to come up nicely. It took a long time to come up. We weren't sure we were gonna get any because it's been so wet and so cold. We planted from seeds that we saved last year. And so a couple spots didn't come up, and a few spots the seeds actually popped right out of the ground, and my daughter had to push them back in, and I pushed some in because it was so much rain that they pushed the seeds right up out of the soil. This next row here, I have some of the pepper plants that were left over. We had a handful of pepper plants that never made it into the kids' garden and in the buckets. So I planted them right in the ground here. But you can see, like, it's been so rainy. They're so muddy. Oh, we have a couple of sage plants that are looking worse for wear. And then my daughter and I planted some lettuce to the stick. And from the stick, there's a bunch of, we prepared the ground to plant some more seeds, but we didn't get very far. And then we have carrots down at the end, and I was trying to weed in between those. But again, we have several rows of carrots. In our next bed here, we're growing peas, lots of peas. And this dill here, these are volunteers from last year. We decided to just let them be. They can be companions to the peas, it's not a big deal. We tried moving them to the cucumber row. Some of them survived, some of them didn't. And this morning, my daughter and I put up these T-posts and this netting, and we're gonna try to grow the peas, train it up along the netting. We're gonna try to grow them vertically. We have these planted pretty close together, and this row of peas is doing really well as well. And you can see the rain, it just washed away like the soil there. It came down, and these trenches here where I'm walking were full, like they were full all the way to the top of water. Now these peas that are a little bit taller, these were seeds we saved from last year, so that's how much stronger they are. They're from this area, they know this garden, and they're happy to grow, happy to oblige. I've only planted one of these. This is my borage plant. It's about to flower. You can eat all the parts of this plant. I like to make a lemonade and put the flowers in it. It's really nice on a really hot day. And then I've got another row of the tomatoes I showed you before. And beside that, I have our garlic. Ooh, I see something. We're starting to get the scapes. They're not quite ready, but the scapes are starting to grow. I plan on canning them in some way or shape or form. These are winter hardneck garlic. I believe we got Music and another kind. I can't remember. And then what happened was we bought these from somebody in the city, and she had some that went to seed, and the seeds she gave us, and that's what these littler ones are. These are seeds. So these ones were from the bulbs, and these other ones, these smaller ones, are from seeds. And this here is a volunteer pea plant. It's an heirloom we had growing here last year. We just left it be. We let it just do its thing. And at the end of the row here, we have a tiny bit of lettuce. This row here are our tiny cucumbers. Now we planted some in between where there were gaps. A few didn't come up, a few died, but they're just really far behind. I'm not too concerned though. I've heard from lots of people you can plant them a little bit later. Once there's more heat, they'll grow just as fast. But there's a few gaps here. We planted some more. We'll see what happens. Some of these were started indoors, some of them weren't. And then here are some of the transplanted dill. And dill and cucumbers make wonderful companions. This garden tour is getting kind of long. And down here, this row here, we have onions. Kind of boring, just onions, lots of onions. And we have onions behind the garden. And this morning, my little daughter, my 5-year-old, planted the sweet potato slips. We have had nothing but trouble with our sweet potatoes. We started them way back, oh my goodness, way back in February, we started them. I tried both. There's two methods you can use. You can use a toothpick method where you put toothpicks in them and then you cut off a little bit of the bottom and set it in some water, and then eventually it'll grow these little leaves. And those leaves you can pick off, like their little stem. You pull them off and you can put them in water and they will grow into these little slips. They'll grow little roots and then you can plant them outdoors. The other method is you can lay the sweet potato in a bit of dirt and then let it grow slips. Well, I've got one of those happening, and I just started seeing little buds of growth last week. And we put these in trays with dirt. A couple of them just rotted. Nothing happened. And the one that is still alive has just started doing slips. So I don't know if we'll get any or not. I might have to grow some sweet potatoes indoors. The rest of the permaculture garden, though, is doing really well. Everything we planted a few weeks ago has lots of leaves. It's thriving really well. Comfrey has recovered from all the rain. My crabapple tree is doing really well. But check this out. This is an Aronia berry. So this Aronia berry has lots of flowers. I didn't even think we'd get fruit this early from it. So we'll see if we get fruit, but the bees are all over it. And we don't spray. We don't use herbicides. We don't use pesticides. And I don't know if you can hear because it's pretty windy. But this raspberry bush is just buzzing. It is buzzing with bees. Got an oxeye daisy in here. It's not supposed to be in here, but it's here, and we'll maybe get rid of it. We'll see. But just look at these. Are my Welsh onions, and they have bees, little wasps, and it's just buzzing. Like, it is crazy. This, folks, is why you shouldn't spray herbicides. Look at this. It's just buzzing. The raspberries buzzing. I can't even get good images of it, but it is buzzing. There are hundreds, if not thousands of bees in my garden right now. My Mammoth Rhubarb has been providing me with lots of leaves to make jams and preserves. This here is a teepee that the kids made with some wire and some branches, and they've got beans. They're telephone beans, I think. They're called tall telephone, and there are sunflowers in there. So I can't wait to see that get big. And our asparagus patch. It's really hard to film asparagus because it's so feathery, but it looks like it's going to seed. So this is our second year with this patch. So we haven't harvested anything. We'll start harvesting next year, but there are some smaller ones I replaced. There are some gaps here. I replaced some of them. Now this was an experiment here. 2 rolls of seed tape in October or November. I can't remember when we put it in there, but it was 2 rolls of seed tape. 1 for carrots, 1 for beets, and I'm impressed. There are a few gaps, but for the most part, impressive. And in the back corner, I've got a variegated elderberry. This last area here is our strawberry patch. It's almost the end of June, and we're starting to get some strawberries. They're still little, and they're still white. And now where they were coming up where they weren't supposed to, I filled in some little gaps. So there are some little ones in between bigger ones. But one day, hopefully this patch will grow all the strawberries we're ever gonna need. So that's our June 2022 garden update. There's my daughter over there. Hi, sweetie. That's what's growing in the big garden and the kids' garden. And you may have wondered where all the potatoes are. They're not in this garden. They're not in the other garden. And since deer don't like to eat potatoes, we have them outside the deer fenced garden. We have 2 different patches of potatoes. It's not a pretty area, so you'll have to bear with me. This one patch that I've got here, it's starting to get really windy. We're gonna get a storm soon. This patch here behind me, we started hilling some of them. It's still pretty wet here, but this was where we had the pigs last year, so we decided to use that. Pigs are hiding in their house. They must know there's a storm coming because the clouds have gotten dark all of a sudden. I'm going to show you one last patch to round out our garden update. I think we're well on our way to doubling what we grew last year just by using the different methods we're using now. We're using more spaces, and we're really putting in that extra effort just because of what's going on in the world today. And this here, this patch here, we have a couple rows of potatoes. It's not looking very pretty. We've hilled them. It's right next to the peonies. The grass came out further than we expected, but pretty soon we should have rows upon rows of peonies. So guys, what do you think? Do you think we're on target to double what we've grown last year? Do you think we can do it? How are you doing? How are you doing in your garden? How is it growing? Are you having as much rain as us, or are you somewhere where there's lots of heat? There's lots of places right now where it's like sweltering heat. It's only 24 degrees Celsius today. They're calling for lots and lots more rain. Torrential. It rains again. I think 25 to 35 milliliters of rain. Old-fashioned tools, just laying around. Somebody got into that. So how are you guys doing? How's your gardening season going? How are things going for you guys? If you need some encouragement, here it is. You've got this. We're gonna keep growing. We're gonna keep sowing. Keep doing all the things we can do to make the world a little bit better, one day at a time. Bless you guys. See you in the next video. Bye. Can we stay here forever?